Good morning. I guess the time has come for me to say goodbye to this class through recording my last ever public speaking speech presentation. And honestly, I am a lot more sad about this than I thought that I would be, because I really have improved so much as a public speaker throughout this entire course. And I have learned things to the point where I can now consider them my greatest strength. And I have gotten feedback on what some of the things that I should be improving on are. And at the same time, I do believe that public speaking in general is a lifelong learning process. And this class has given me the foundation that I need to continue this process throughout my life. But from my very first speech that I recorded, the technology setup speech, your comment was that my introduction was not interesting enough. And you're absolutely right. I don't think my speech was interesting enough to even watch it before I submitted it. But I really took that to heart, and I think I made it one of my biggest strengths ever to really have an interesting introduction and to have a good and solid conclusion that leaves my audience with just a solid base of what I want my speech to be. Get their attention in the beginning, have something for them to think about in the end, and maybe they're going to remember at least one thing from the body of my speech. That was my plan. And I think it really worked in a lot of cases. I know that both you and my classmates have commented on the fact that I had pretty good attention getters for the remainder of my speeches and very memorable conclusions, to the point where if there's nothing else that my classmates are going to remember, they're going to remember that they should always have a Disney smile at the hospital, or they should remember that they can't really abuse our elderly because one day we're going to become old too. And I think those are the things that are going to stick with my classmates for more than just the moment that they needed to watch it. At the same time, I also had a lot of weaknesses in my speeches. For most of them, my expressions are not really fantastic, and my gestures, even though I have improved throughout the course, are not exactly what they need to be to make an interesting speech. I kind of rush through my speeches, and I don't really smile a lot, and then I'm not really coming off as a friendly human being who people should interact with when I do these things. And most of that is because my speeches are so incredibly rushed, because I have so much information that I'm trying to convey to my classmates that there's not a whole lot of time for me to stop and think about what it is I'm saying before it kind of just all comes out. And at the same time, I really think that it's almost awkward watching yourself talk on video, because for half of the time you're just sitting there going, oh, is that really what I look like? Instead of focusing on what it is you're saying and how you're saying it. So I think for me that's one of the biggest challenges that I have had with this course in general. And I think something that is definitely going to be something I need to work on in the future is most certainly time management. My time management is not terrible because I always got things done before the deadline. But at the same time, I wouldn't start things until the very last minute, to the point where a lot of your comments were pretty much along the lines of, hey, you do know you're still enrolled in this class, right? So I think that had I been better with my time management and starting my speeches early and not waiting for that last minute panic to be my best motivator, that I would have had more time to maybe even practice my speeches and become more comfortable with what I look like on video and not have had that problem. But at the same time, I really do think that I have progressed a lot, because I remember my first speech, like I said, was boring to the point where I didn't even want to watch it. And then I think my informative speech, the one where I talked about how patient satisfaction is considered a huge part of reimbursement for hospitals, I think that was, in my opinion, the best speech that I have done. And I really think that that was the peak of me having my research together and me having an organized speech and presentation. But at the same time, the two speeches that we had after that, I think I also improved my gestures and my communication and pace with everything. So there was really not a bad speech for me after that very first one, where I recorded it from like a computer that was this tall. And my introduction wasn't interesting. My body didn't really have anything that it was saying, and the only thing that it had going for it was the conclusion. But I really have learned so much throughout this course, and I am really happy that I now have this foundation that I can go out and perfect my public speaking in ways that I never could before. Thank you, Dr. Hughes.